Yeah, we're going to discuss what it's going to look like for the average American, but more importantly, especially when it comes to this show, we really need to dig deep and hanker in on how it's going to affect real estate from this point forward. Hey, welcome to Uncommon Estate of Mind, where we debate different ways to leverage your next investment to create time freedom, legacy impact, and generational wealth so you can live that uncommon life. But in order to do that, you must be earned. My name is Joey, aka Mr. J Mates.
You know what it is. I'm your boy, AD, also known as AD the Fly Realtor.
Boom. So this episode is about Trump's tariffs and how it's going to affect housing in the US. We will have winners, we will have losers, but what's most important, we need to figure out how it affects you. Okay. So really quick, I do want to go over, we're just going to dive right into this because there's a lot of speculation on what's going on with these tariffs. There have been 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, with the same tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico for the most part. And each country is kind of tariffed a little different.
Right. I mean, what we know right now is that the plan was 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and then 10% tariff on imports coming from China. Pretty much what's happened so far is that the day tariffs were supposed to be enacted on, or not the day, but a few days prior to the day that tariffs were going to be enacted on Canada and Mexico, they did come to agreements to postpone the tariffs. So, at least in Canada's case, what they were going to do is have what's called a fentanyl SAR, which is somebody who's going to try and help and overlook the flow of fentanyl into the country, which is one of Trump's agendas. And then Mexico, they deployed 10,000 troops to the US Mexico border to try to help mitigate immigration. Right now, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of this postponement, but we do know that it at least brought these two countries to the table, to the negotiation table, I should say. In the case for China, China, they don't play. So they just went back and imposed tariffs back on us. So, that's China's a little different ball game. I don't know if we could play the same ball game with China that we can with Canada and Mexico. But anyways, so let's just start from there, man. So what do you think so far on us imposing tariffs on primarily our neighbors, probably our two biggest allies in the world? Like, we impose tariffs on them. Let's start there, and then, like you said, how is it going to affect us, the consumer, the citizens of this country?
Mainly what I want to discuss, you know, yeah, we're going to discuss what it's going to look like for the average American, but more importantly, especially when it comes to this show, we really need to dig deep and hanker in on how it's going to affect real estate from this point forward. You know what I mean? Especially
Right.
and then also looking into the future. But before we do that, what I really want to do is just go over some of like what people are thinking for the most part. I know a lot of folks are like thinking like, "Hey, Trump is just like a big bully." I personally didn't vote for him, but the thing is, with any president, you have to take in the good and bad that they do. And right now, some people are viewing him as like just some big bully who's just, you know what I'm saying, just imposing tariffs on people left and right, just to like swing his wang around.
I go what you trying to say. Right, it came to that quick pause. You forgot where we were. That's what it
I had to figure out how to segue. And other folks are looking at the terrorists as, maybe it's a great thing. Maybe it's something that's, going to benefit Americans right now and possibly in the future. And it's I think the best thing that we can do is pretty much eliminate all the facts around what's going on with these tariffs and figure out exactly how it's going to affect us, whether it be a forecast or the things that are happening now, and try to figure out what it means for us in real estate moving forward.
Right, exactly. I love that point of view because what it does primarily is it's gonna take some of that emotion out of it. Because everybody knows when you're operating primarily with emotion, you're obviously not operating with a clear mind. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, personally, one thing I think is that these tariffs, like right now, I feel like a lot of citizens, like at least people I talk to, they kind of like already tired of hearing about them. You know what I mean? Like, we heard about it for the campaign, like, it came when Trump first presented tariffs, like, unless I'm mistaken, the first time he even mentioned them, it was in the aspect of, like, "I'm gonna eliminate taxes, and we're gonna have tariffs instead." You know what I mean? So that sounds really cool. That sounds amazing. Then, like, he gets in office, and then you hear, like, okay, like, tariffs are about to be imposed on Canada, Mexico, and China, and it's like, "Alright, let's see what happens." But then now we see that it got postponed. So, I think people are kinda just like, "Okay, what's really about to happen?" And also, I think that, like, that unknown is what's really making people freak out. You know what I mean? Like, not knowing how it's going to affect you personally, not knowing how it's gonna affect when you wanna get groceries, when you wanna buy a home, when you wanna invest some more money, like, that's the part that's really, freaking people out.
What
So, it's
what I'll say to piggyback that is this. We talked about this a little bit off camera, and to be very blunt, things are not gonna look great immediately. Like, period.
nah, nah,
You know what I'm saying?
and you know what? It really wasn't supposed to. You know what I mean? Like, that's part of the plan, like, part of the plan is for it to get a little rocky before, it can smoothen out.
Yeah, in the short term, having beef with these countries, especially our neighbors being Mexico and Canada, in the short term, it's not great because, once again, folks could, impose tariffs back on us. China is, especially, not to, forgetting to mention them, it can make things very difficult for us,
Right, right.
especially if you're, and once again, I'm going back to the investor hat. Like, I have a couple of facts that I do want to kind of hanker down on, especially when it comes to real estate, because these are things that people, especially us in the purpose of this show, for people who are in real estate, how is this gonna really affect you? And how is this, you know, gonna affect your investing strategies from this point forward? So a couple of facts I did want to bring up. As according to the National Association of Home Builders, there's going to be a 13% increase in framing lumber a year over year, right? Or actually, there is a 13% increase in framing lumber year over year. And this is reported as of February 7th, 2025. And on top of that, overall lumber prices have risen by 7.1% within the same period.
Right.
Second, according to CoreLogix, these tariffs could push up home construction costs between 4 to 6% over the next 12 months, which could then increase the average home prices between $17,000 to $22,000 on average, right? And
Right. I mean, it'll probably be a little worse because it's not going to be a direct correlation. So if it affects the cost of building a home by 4 to 6%, it's not just going to increase the cost of the home 4 to 6%. Because everybody's got to make a premium on the premium. Oh, so if it's costing me 4 to 6%, that means it's about to be 6 to 8% for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, or more, or more. I mean, if we're just being real, if you're just being honest, I'm just trying to be clear.
if we're just being honest, right? And that's something that you have to think about, because we're not just talking home construction here. You know what I'm saying? Home construction one for sure. You know what I'm saying? What about the folks that want to flip a home that still need to go pay for some design for these materials?
Or changing the purpose of a already existing structure. You know what I mean? Like, we have a housing crisis right now. What if I'm gonna convert some office building into some residential units? You know what I'm saying? So it's like all of that does go up, and somebody gonna pay. Yeah, somebody might. It's usually the person who has the least say so.
Right.
So you should figure that out.
So when we talk about winners and losers, as of right now, if you ask me, everybody's gonna lose. Like everybody's gonna lose a little bit.
Right.
Everybody's gonna lose a little bit. It's gonna be worse for the beginning investor and the new investor than it is for somebody who's been in the game for a while. Um, Obviously because these prices are gonna go up. And another thing that I thought about was if you think about like the affordable housing crisis, you know what I mean? With these costs going up, uh, when it comes to labor, not I haven't even talked about labor yet. We're not even gonna get into that. But when it comes to lumber
That's a whole
and materials, you know what I mean? When you're talking affordable housing or even just getting into that first home, and I don't want to go too deep into that because this is mainly an investing show. But you know, if we're talking about the American dream and purchasing that first property, knowing that housing, the average price of homes is going to go up or could go up between $17,000 and $22,000 within these upcoming years, it just makes that reality a lot more distant for you. You know what I mean? As far as ownership, especially in cities, in large metro cities.
Yeah, and you know what? That 17 to 22%, like, unless I'm mistaken, they're just factoring in, with like the tariffs and the increased cost of good or not goods, that's all they're factoring. They're not factoring in inflation and the economy and the natural flow of the market, which is for home and property prices to increase. You know what I mean? So that's not also being factored into this equation, unless I'm mistaken. So, that's definitely something to think about. And again, it goes back to why there's a lot of those people who are scared about this, and like one thing I've heard multiple times is people also being concerned with the fact that what it's gonna do is that because things cost more, it's gonna make more people just spend less money. You know what I'm saying? Which is also another hit to our economy. If that does happen, if people aren't spending money, it sounds like, okay, cool, everybody's saving money. But what that does is no economy is working well if the circulation of money isn't constant. So once money stops circulating, that's how economies die and get weak. So that's another thing to keep your eye on. Like, okay, so if things do go up, what's going to be the natural reaction for most people to stop spending?
And according to the same folks that I brought up before, according to Core Logics, they also said these recent tariffs that have been enacted, it could increase inflation between point 0.6 or about 0.6% and reduce GDP spending or GDP growth by 0.2%. So that just goes along to about what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean about the economy slowing down, the overall economy slowing down because of this that have been enacted. But once again, we just need to go ahead and put all of that out there right now because it's very much a two-edged sword. If we're talking short term, talking right now, the thing is when you say short term, but you're talking about the economy, like short term could be like 5 to 10 years. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, right.
and that could be somebody's entire investing career. 5 to 10 years, and then you could be done from that point forward.
That's a good point. Yeah, especially in real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's people who definitely spend a less than 10-year period buying properties and then after that, no more buying. So yeah, I hear you on that. Very true.
Yeah. So that's a part that we have to keep in mind when we talk about this because short term could be somebody's long term. And the overall benefit of this, which could be down the line, and we haven't even really talked about the benefits of it because we just want to get all the facts out.
Right,
But
right.
in the short term, in the right now, it's gonna make I think it's gonna make investing a little bit tougher. As of right now, it's gonna make investing a little bit tougher due to the rising in materials that it takes to either build new property or rehab a property right away. And if like I hate to say, but that's pretty much the fact. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I mean, really, like, just on its face, and I like the transition you're working on right here. But yes, just on its face, if these tariffs are just imposed and carried out the way they are, the way Trump said, like, one, it's gonna make people buy less from these international, you know what I mean, from these other countries. But then two, it can redirect people back to buying from American countries. But either way, what it's going to do is constant there is going to be an increase on the end buyer at some point. You know what I mean? But the thing is here, like you said, we talked about all the negatives, but what we didn't talk about were the positives. And there are some positives.
There definitely are. And once again, as we said off camera, it's like, when are you going to rip the Band-Aid off? Because it has to happen at some point.
It's got to happen at some
Some
point.
of these tariffs have been in place for 30 to 40 years where we are paying a shit ton of money exporting goods, you know what I'm saying? And these other countries are not really paying as much as us when
Not close to as much.
they export to us, you know what I mean?
No, and I mean, does that even make sense to you? You know what I'm saying? Like, not you personally, but I mean you, the watcher. Does that even make sense? Where, all right, so if I send something to your country, I gotta pay an extra dollar for every $10 worth of good. When you send something to me, you gotta pay what would be the equivalent 10 cents. You know, like that's a big disparity. You know what I'm saying? Like, does it really make sense that we were shelling out so much money, just to operate, and other countries to operate with us don't have to shell out equal amount of money. Like so
And I
uh,
but no, I 100% am with that. And like I said, some of these the structure of these tariffs have been in place for so long, and we've been losing so much money because of it. So for someone to come in and decide to kind of restructure that, or impose higher tariffs so that people can sit at the negotiation table and figure out a better way to get this done. Yes, that hurts us right now. It hurts us right now, but over time, if we're talking long term, it's extremely beneficial for the United States. Like, it's extremely beneficial for the market, for the overall GDP.
I mean, if we're being real, like if we're being all the way real, I personally don't feel like Trump is all the way serious with this whole like, oh, these high tariffs thing. I think, like you said, the purpose of this was to bring people to the negotiation table. Like, okay, we need to restructure this. Like, this doesn't fully makes sense that we're paying so much. You know what I mean? It's really just not fair. Like, I don't care like who you are, what you think, you know what I mean? I don't care if you support Trump or not. That really just doesn't make sense that in order to do business with you, we pay a certain amount, but to do business with us, you pay a less amount. You know what I mean? Like, that just doesn't make any sense at all. And maybe it did make sense at one point, or maybe as a country, we were shelling out favors to other countries. You know what I mean? I get it, but it doesn't make sense for a long term aspect or point of view. You know what I mean? But the good thing is, if we could bring people to the negotiation table with these tariffs, or with the fear of tariffs, and then we can rework these deals, maybe then we can get back on the right track as far as how we get our goods, how much we spend to get our goods, and then also giving American companies an opportunity to compete. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's a whole nother thing too. We need our American companies to be able to compete with these companies from other countries. Like, it's already cheaper to get those goods, but then they don't even pay much. I mean, a tariff is pretty much a tax. So they don't pay a tax on the goods that they're sending here, or they don't pay a high tax on the goods they're sending here. So you really put the American entrepreneur or business, you put them at a disadvantage in their own backyard. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to fight with that aspect of it, with that point of view, where it's like we do need to actually figure out something that works for everybody, not just for the little guy.
And that's why there's this lining in the prices of goods increasing due to these tariffs, right? Because now we have to do what Americans have always been good at doing, and that's being innovative, right?
Right.
I was just looking something up prior to this. It was 3D printed homes. Like, you can use 3D printed homes to save on different construction costs and this can go from, low housing to luxury homes where you can use these 3D printed homes or 3D printed materials in order to construct these homes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it gives room for innovation, and I think it's time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember when we had our t-shirt company, I think we got a couple of things from China, if I'm not mistaken, because it was just so much.
A couple times. Yeah. Yeah, man. No, a couple times, because it was, I mean, shoot, what were we gonna do? Yeah, I mean, we had limited resources. we didn't have a lot of knowledge either. So it's like, okay, like, what's the quickest, easiest way to get something done, or also the cheapest way? You know what I mean? Because sometimes quickest isn't in your best option if you got limited resources. So yeah, it's just, it's a hard thing because like I can't fault somebody who's trying to keep a business afloat for deciding to work with another country that, you know what I mean, it's far cheaper for. So it's like I do get it to a degree where it's like, yeah, it makes sense where if we want to give more American companies even a shot to compete, even a shot to gain that American customer, we do have to incentivize, you know what I mean, people to buy from other, homegrown businesses.
I agree with that. And what it could also lead to, because there might be a gap, there might still be a gap, even if with innovation, there still might be a gap uh in the ability to work with American companies. But what this could actually lead to is, legislative changes that, once again, help the average Americans be able to afford or get more help with these rising costs of running a business, you know what I mean? Or as a consumer, or once again, when it comes to real estate, in the short term, I would suggest it's going to be difficult. I mean, and that's just my thought.
Right. Like if I had to pick one, like, is it going to be harder or is it going to be easier? I'm definitely going to pick that, it's likely going to be harder, a little bit harder. But one thing I always say is that, you want to come into a game when it's a little rough. Because if you can persevere enough and you can stick with it long enough to figure it out, when things smoothen out, you'll feel like a pro. You know what I mean? You'll have a graduate level degree in whatever that thing is. In our case, real estate investing. You know what I mean? So it's like if it's a little bit harder right now as a beginner with your first 1 to 3 properties, and then in 5 to 10 years it does get easier, maybe you'll be better off for this hard period. You know what I mean? But we really have to see how what's going to happen once the dust settles.
Oh
Because
yeah,
like
that's the only thing. Definitely need to figure out and see what this is going to look like after a few years of this being enacted. And actually, even in the shorter term, how many countries are going to come to the negotiating table and figure out a different solution
right.
that could avoid
Hey, you know what?
being a
Like I told you before, the best thing we got going for us right now, and the best thing Trump has going for him is that other countries know he's crazy enough to do it. Like this dude will upend the world's economy and impose tariffs on whoever to get his point across. I do think that it's probably an ultimate bluff, but you can bluff best when people know you would actually do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what he's got going for him, because I really think his whole goal was to bring them to the negotiation table. You know what I mean? That's what I think it is. It's like, bring them to negotiation table and like, we've got to figure this out. So maybe it could work. It remains to be seen. But one thing I do know is we'll be here to discuss it once we find out. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a whole lot, and a lot of people are scared right now. A lot of people don't know what the future looks like. I know there's a lot of people our age and younger who wanted to get their first home and don't know what that's gonna look like or how they're gonna go about it. They don't know if this is gonna upend their whole plans. You know what I mean? Like, people can't even save as much money. Go ahead.
right. And we really just want to present some of the facts that are out there, and some possible, and like I said, these some facts and some possible projections. You know what I'm saying? Who's to say
Right.
a few years from now, maybe it doesn't take 5 to 10 years. Maybe things are, everybody's at the negotiation table and we could figure something out. But if these things, or if these tariffs, have to be followed through with, at least we know what to expect. And as an investor, or, just as a person in general, but mainly as an investor, you always plan for the worst. You know what I'm saying? But then you continue with the best in mind. And, that's what we have to do right now.
Exactly. You hope for the best, but you do need to have an idea of like what's the worst possible thing that could happen. And if it did happen, how would I counteract that? You know what I mean? It doesn't mean you expect bad things to happen, but it is good to be prepared for bad things to happen.
So I have a question for you. So, and I might be putting you on the spot here because I didn't really think about this until right now. So, understanding that, if this is enacted and say we are in a period or high tariffs are our future, what do you think is the immediate next step for our brand new investor trying to get their foot in the door?
I mean, ultimately, I feel like I think everything kind of stays the same because really whatever your first step would have been without these tariffs is probably your same first step. The way you go about it is just differently. So when I say that, what I'm saying is like, let's say the first thing you needed to do was get money together. So it's like you're still gonna need to get money together and just might be more money.
The overall, I think they're necessary. You know what I mean? And mind you, I'm not a Trump guy. Like, I'm not a person who like I don't really champion politicians like that, and I didn't really vote for Trump.
Right,
I'm saying, but
right,
what I
right.
will say is, this is a necessary evil, and as I said prior, we have to rip the Band-Aid off at some point when it comes to getting more fair transactions when it comes to these different countries. You know what I mean? Because it is called
Yeah, yeah.
overall. So overall, it's going to benefit us in the long run, especially when it comes to some of the ancillary things that it could do for us domestically and, being more creative in ways to build property and also rehab property.
Right, right. Exactly, indeed.
Yeah. So that's my thought.
But, yeah,
But
yeah.
we going to
I mean,
on self development though, there, it's going to be a lot.
for real, man, you better be happy about the growth you experience. You know, it might have been hard as hell to get a property, but at least you grew during that time. You're all the better for it, you know what I'm saying? Like the old timers say, like they had to walk through snow to get to school. Like, did that make you a better student though? Hey, I don't know, but who knows what it is. No, but for real though, like, I mean, overall, if this works out, like, I think it is a good thing because again, like you said, keeping that long term in mind, at some point, this did need to happen. You know what I mean? I just hope it works out without too much of a rock for our economy. I know there's going to be a rock a little bit, especially for I don't want to say the little man, for the everyday man, for the everyday person.
Right.
Like it could hurt a little bit, but we did need to figure something out. Like some of this didn't make sense. With most countries, this tactic may work at least for the next few years. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how it's gonna work on the back end when down the line they feel like I don't owe you any favors because you didn't, you know what I mean? You weren't plugging me in. But again, like I said, most countries this could work, like Canada and Mexico for sure. It's gonna work. I don't know what it's gonna be like with China. That's one that I'm like, yeah. And China, our economy needs China more than China's economy needs us.
And that's
That's a fact.
That is and I really don't like that. And do you know what else is something you need to think about? And this is something that I actually learned not so long ago. We actually we're Mexico's largest partner. You know what I'm saying? As
Exactly.
far as
Right.
trade, as far as goods and services, but guess who's pouring?
Yeah, I think we're like, right.
I said, but
No,
guess who's pouring a lot of money into Mexico as well? China.
exactly. And see, so that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the part where it's like, okay, yeah, you may get what you want out of Mexico and Canada, but you do now leave a little more room for that other dude to come in and try and creep on your girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you holding it down, your girl's not looking elsewhere. You act a little crazy, you might get your way, but you might leave room for somebody else to change her mind. There's a lesson in there somewhere.
So that's the lesson right
Maybe more than one lesson. Now, it'd be more than one lesson.
because Mexico looking at China like, you know that meme is that dude and his girlfriend walking and you had that dude look at the
Oh, yeah, he's looking at
yeah, that girl that dude look for that yeah, that's Mexico.
right. Exactly. Mexico looking like, see, because here's the thing. Like, I do want to touch on this. Like, one thing America has done a lot in our history, like, a lot of people don't know, America has gone to countries and, like, we've had this. get down or lay down mindset. Like that's what you about to do. And China has that same mindset too, but China's at least going to come with like investments like, oh, I'm going to pour into your country. I'm going to like bring we're going to have jobs in your country. And then I'm going to make it damn near impossible for you to be able to pay off the loan that we gave to your country. And after that, I'm going to own you. But at least they're coming with a smile and with gifts. So, you know what I mean? Like a Trojan horse. Coming with that. A Trojan horse. Exactly, exactly. So they're at least making it look like, yeah, we'll help you guys out. We'll, increase the productivity of your country. We'll give your citizens job, and then we'll own you. Oh, see, only time will tell. Cheers, my head. Now for real, as they the Pope said. If you think I'm playing, hey, China knows exactly what they're doing. And if you think I don't know what I'm talking about, go to an African country right now. Yeah. Go to South America right now. You'll see China's influence all over the place. And this is a global thing. Yeah. So, hey,
Yeah.
man,
So we
that's the scary part.
it is. So we'll see. We'll see how this thing plays out, man. It's interesting to talk about. I'm pretty sure we're gonna touch on this again in the future. So definitely.
Not for real.
Man, I shoot. I don't let's I'm not even sure what a B for today would be. I mean, we could think of
Man, I think a B for today would probably be like a multifaceted B. You know what I mean? Because it's like you gotta still like if you still want to be an investor, you gotta be fearless because there's definitely gonna be a lot of things that come up that'll make you scared. You gotta be in the know, or be informed because things are gonna be changing a lot rapidly in the next few years, in the short to long term future. And you gotta be ready. Anything can happen.
and
Oh,
happen.
I mean, maybe be ready.
Be ready.
I don't know if I could stick with one, but if I had to, probably be ready.
Not agree. I think we gonna have to be ready for sure. So as AD said, man, be ready, be you, and be uncommon.
All right, man. Till next time.